going into the reception. Heading into the recession, Rob. The recession. I think now moving into the recession, I did it. How to start an Airbnb business during the recession, according to my notepad here. No, I'm just kidding. I knew that before I started recording this video. Okay, so a couple of months ago, I actually made a video that was called How to Start an Airbnb Business in 2022, and we're still in 2022, so I thought it'd be a good idea to clean the slate and make a video that's a little bit more tailored to the economic climate that we're in, with a few things to keep in mind if you want to be a successful short-term rental host. Cool? So hit the like button and grab a pen and paper, because what I'm about to lay out in this video is going to be incredibly critical for your success in 2023. Let's talk about the steps that you need to take to actually get into Airbnb. So number one, you want to nail down your goals. All right, why do you want to get into Airbnb? This is something that you're going to want to decide as you start going down the Airbnb rabbit hole, aka watching my entire channel, like my How to Start an Airbnb Business playlist. Also, apologies in advance. So here's where you really have to start answering questions. Are you getting into Airbnb because you want to buy a property that you want to use as a vacation home, and instead of burning cash and paying the bills every month, maybe you want to list it on Airbnb and break even or make a profit? This is a very easy and stress-free way of getting into Airbnb because you're not so focused on the returns and what's a good investment, what's a bad investment. You just want to break even, right? That would be a reason for getting into Airbnb. Another reason might be that you want to make supplementary income. Maybe your job pays you pretty well, but you want to make an extra $1,000 to $2,000 a month. These are all reasons to get into Airbnb, and it can be all of them. But the more focused you are on your vision, the easier it's going to be to lock in on a property that fits your criteria. So that's gonna be number one. And I'm sure you're probably asking yourself, well, hey, Rob, as the guy on YouTube that talks about Airbnb and all this stuff, what are your goals? So for me, I've got a huge fire under my butt. I'm trying to close on $4 million of property before the end of the year, because not only am I trying to invest to combat inflation, but I'm also in it for the tax deduction and the write-offs through things like cost segregation and bonus depreciation and all that kind of stuff. So I've got a bunch of goals ranging from not getting my kicked by inflation to reducing my tax bill and not getting my kicked by Uncle Sam. Ow. All right, number two is gonna be picking a strategy. I know you're probably thinking, well, I thought you already said we were gonna do the goals. Now we gotta pick a strategy. Yeah, all right, so goals are kind of like the overarching thing that you wanna achieve in your life, in your Airbnb journey. The strategy is the execution, right? The execution that you're gonna choose to get to your goals. So in this instance, it really comes down to picking your model. What Airbnb model do you want to choose to actually get into the game? So a couple of Airbnb business model examples here would be like glamping. Do you want to get into glamorous camping? Or do you want to purchase a home that you then list on the Airbnb platform? Or Vrbo or Booking.com? Choose your poison there. Or do you want to get into rental arbitrage, where you go out and you rent an apartment and then you sublease it on Airbnb by marking it up? This is how I got my start when I got into Airbnb. Or do you want to get into midterm rentals? Instead of hosting for 1 to 30 days at a time, you actually host for 30 plus days at a time, month to month. But ultimately, midterm rentals is in between a short-term rental and a long-term rental, right? So it's another business model that you can use to get you closer to your overall Airbnb goals. And by the way, if you want to learn how to break into Airbnb or even into the glamping game, then I highly recommend that you check out my workshop that I'm going to be hosting on November 23rd. It's going to be an hour long. You can ask all your questions about host camp and glam camp. And yeah, that's all I'm going to say about that. I'm going to leave a link in the description down below. I'll see you there. Okay, 3. I already feel like I've talked for an hour, so hopefully this is making sense. But number 3 is going to be getting pre-approved. And this is where we really start getting into some of my very specific points of view here as it pertains to the recession. First of all, the reason you want to get pre-approved is that there's no point in going window shopping on Redfin or Zillow if you don't know how much money's in your purse or your wallet, right? Like, you have to kind of know what you can afford before you can actually start looking at homes that you might want to buy. Just proper logic there, right? Here's the harsh reality that you have to understand, and it's that rates have gone up. Rates on conventional and investor loans are going to range anywhere from 6 to 8%. 6 to 8%, it's very high. We're approaching hard money like rates that are usually about 10%. But there's an interesting psychology that's happening right now where when rates were 3 to 5%, a lot of people would say, well, I don't want to get into real estate. I mean, rates are low, but housing is so overinflated. And then now rates are really high and, prices are starting to drop on the houses and people are saying, oh, I don't want to get into real estate. Sure, prices are dropping, but rates are high. It's all two sides of the same coin. Is that the phrase? I don't even know, but it's probably not the phrase, just based on the fact that I never get phrases correct on this channel. But all to say, it's the same thing. It's to say high rates, lower prices, low rates, higher prices. What matters the most is that you get in the game and then you stay in the game. If you buy at a high interest rate and a high price and you sell in 2 years, well, yeah, you could be underwater. But let's just say that you buy at a high interest rate and a high price, but you stick it out for 30 years, well, then you actually got a good deal because that house is gonna double or triple with inflation, right? So I wouldn't necessarily let the whole rate psychology be the barrier for you ever getting into Airbnb or real estate at all. And I'm also not saying buy a bad deal. I'm just saying that when you buy a property, just make sure that it falls within the guideline and the criteria that you set out for yourself. Okay, so I'm watching back the edit and I forgot to say the most important part, which is my fault for not scripting my videos, but if the deal works now, if you run the numbers and it comps out and it cash flows now, then it will also work for you in 1 or 2, 3 years from now when you refi to a lower rate. But don't buy a bad deal. Don't be so desperate to get into Airbnb or to get into real estate that you force yourself into a bad deal that you can't get yourself out of. All right, it's not worth it. Real estate will always be around. There will always be deals to be had. You're just gonna have to look for them, but don't buy a bad deal. Run your numbers, make sure they work. But anyways, bringing it back to today's economic climate, rates are shifting and so are the actual loan programs themselves. You used to be able to put down 10% on a second home loan, and now they might range anywhere from 10 to 20% down. Many of them are falling in that 15% down range right now. So it's getting a little tougher to find 10% down home loans. But they do exist, you just might have to pay more points on them. For me, going into the recession and really tackling it head on though, I will say that what I'm looking at for my specific situation is what's called a DSCR loan. This stands for a debt service coverage ratio loan. I'm focusing on DSCR loans right now because with my income and my financial situation with taxes and all the kind of banks just, I don't know, they just still don't trust me for some reason, even though I make way more money than I used to, but they still want like 18 centuries worth of tax returns and they don't believe me. So DSCR loans are great because they actually qualify me and you, should you choose these loans, based on the rental projections of that property. So if the property is projected to make a certain amount of money, the bank sees that, and that's what they use to underwrite the loan, whereas traditional bank loans might use your debt to income ratio, your DTI. These have really been a godsend for my portfolio, so if you want to get connected with a loan officer that understands short-term rentals and how to underwrite loans for them, then I'm going to leave the contact info of Drew over at Caliver Beach in the description down below. He's a great loan officer and he really nerds out about all things short-term rentals, so hit him up, tell him I sent you. All right, woo! Tracking with me? I hope you are. I'm losing it. It's 11:08 p.m. and honestly, I'm very tired. So if I'm not making sense, it's not because I'm ADHD and I ramble a lot, but it's because it's about to be midnight. Anyways, number 4, I want to give you some very actionable steps here. That's going to be pick 2 markets in a backup. One of the things that I really found myself getting stressed over was just shiny object syndrome, where I would hear about people crushing it in this market and then crushing it in this market and this market. And so I would just have realtors in 10 different states and 50 different cities and have all these options. And then guess what? So many options made it to where it was so hard to focus. So I'm going to instruct you here as your YouTube mentor to focus on 2 markets and then a backup. The backup, I don't even want you to touch that until you've struck it. Strucken? That's not a word, is it? Shoot, what was I saying? See, this is a problem with making jokes on the cuff. I never remember what I'm saying. Oh yeah, the backup. You're not even gonna look at that until you've struck out on your first 2. Okay, I really want you to focus on number 1 and number 2, and I promise if you do that, it's gonna be so much easier to keep up with 2 realtors, make offers in 2 markets, and focus on those, because you can feasibly keep up with 2 cities and all the new listings that populate every single day. Once you get past that, it gets a little finicky. So pick something from the quadrant that I always talk about here on YouTube. I need a good name for it. Maybe like my B&B quadrant. The Super Quattro. The B&B Quattro. The core 4. That's David Green's term, but I'm gonna say the core 4. Your core 4 types of markets that you wanna invest in. That's gonna be national parks, state parks, eclectic towns, and vacation destinations. The reason I like national parks a lot is because they are Mother Nature's Disneyland. You don't have to market the Grand Canyon or the Smoky Mountains or Joshua Tree or Shenandoah National Park or Big Bend. Those are all places that millions of people go to every single year. I don't have to explain to you that Yosemite is a cool, beautiful place. You have probably heard that your entire life. So they're places that people are already familiar with. State parks are gonna be the same thing, but just on a much smaller level. Eclectic towns to me are small towns that have a draw to them that people will go and visit them for whatever reason, right? Fredericksburg outside of Austin, Bentonville, Arkansas, for example, Julian right outside of San Diego, Waco outside of Austin. I mean, there's so many places like this that are tourist magnets and just have something about them that are charming. And then vacation destinations are gonna be beach towns, lake towns, ski towns, and tourist destinations like Disneyland and Disney World. But with that said, you probably want to focus on the places where people are still going to be traveling during the recession. Now, I've always been bullish about national parks for this exact reason, but I genuinely do think that national parks are recession resistant. Just take the Smoky Mountains, for example. Over 1 million people visit there every single month. And even during the height of the pandemic, millions of people were still going to the Smoky Mountains. So yeah, maybe you don't want to focus on more expensive tourist destinations like Disneyland or Disney World, because big families that might have gone to Disney World and spent $8,000 or $10,000 on their family of 4 or 5 just may not have the money to do that anymore. But it's relatively cheap to jump in your van or your SUV and spend gas to go to a national park and camp there. So where you choose your market is up to you, but just remember, 2 markets in a backup. That backup stays in the back pocket till you've totally struck out on your first 2. Okay, step number 5, find a realtor that specializes in short-term rentals, all right? I used to be a little bit more flexible in this, and I've probably said on the channel that this would be a nice to have, but I think going into the reception, why do I keep doing that? What am I saying? Oh, right! Heading into the shoot. I think that now that we're in the recession, it's more important than ever to be very dialed in with your comps and your analysis. And it's really nice to have a realtor that speaks the same language as you do as it pertains to short-term rentals, because you can effectively run your analysis and then maybe just use your realtor as a sounding board to say, hey, am I on the right track? This is where the data and my research has led me. Am I completely off? And if your realtor has an understanding of the market and what other people are making in that market, then it can effectively corroborate your research and make you feel a lot better going into it, but also just help you be more accurate as you make a very big multi-$100,000 investment. And having played this game for 5 years now, I will say I recently linked up with the realtor who was just super dialed in with short-term rentals. As a matter of fact, they comped out a property for me, made a loom using my free spreadsheet that I give to you on the channel, and told me that the property did not comp out. And I was like, oh my God, this realtor just went above and beyond to show me that they really know their stuff in the short-term rental game. And guess what? I am way more likely to use this realtor now in this market because I know that they know their stuff and I know that they have my back. So with the amount of realtors out there, I think you should just try to focus and find one that specializes in Airbnb. And a very easy way to do this, just a quick tip for you here, is call a brokerage in the area. Find any brokerage, a Keller Williams or an EXP, whatever. Call the main line. The receptionist is probably gonna answer, and tell them that you are looking for someone that specializes specifically in short-term rentals. Call them and say, hi, I wanna buy an Airbnb in this town. I wanna be connected with the agent in your office who is the top dog, the top big dog, the top big Rob dog in the office that knows their stuff about Airbnb. I actually used this strategy to find a realtor in Scottsdale who was awesome and amazing at Airbnb, and it completely changed my experience with buying that property. All right, step number 6 to starting an Airbnb business during the recession is to start analyzing deals. And not just start analyzing deals, but start analyzing a lot of deals. Every single day, 10 deals, 20 deals a day, and really start strengthening this muscle and start mastering this, because it's by far the #1 skill that you're ever gonna learn as an Airbnb investor. By far. By far, by far, by far, by far, by far.
I get it.
All right, so I've got a ton of videos that teach you how to analyze. I'm not gonna get into the nitty gritty, go check those out. But there are some things that I really wanna get into because the times are different than they were when I made this video 5 months ago. But I am gonna say that there are 2 major platforms that I use right now to analyze all my deals. I mean, I use a bunch of them, but AirDNA, obviously I've talked about that one on the channel a lot. If you wanna sign up with AirDNA, I'm gonna leave a link in the description down below for you. But I've actually started using All the Rooms quite a bit too, as well as STR Insights. I'm a really big fan of just using all the tools out there to help you analyze a deal because you can't be too thorough. So All the Rooms, I think they're a very data-driven platform. I really like them. I've been incorporating them into my daily comp routine. I comp like 10, 15, 20 deals a day usually. And if you use promo code Robuilt, you'll get 20% off your subscription if that's interesting to you. STR Insights is also a really great tool for identifying markets. I'm pretty sure I have a promo code that'll get you money off the subscription too. So all that stuff is always gonna be linked in the description down below for you, by the way. All right, so like I said, I don't wanna get too into it, but there are some things that I wanna talk about because, you know, times are just different than when I first made this video 5 months ago. So 6 to 8% interest rates right now, they're gonna cut into your returns, all right? You know, a year ago, interest rates were gonna be 2.75 to 4.5%, all right? Now they're 6 to 8%. So interest rates are effectively double. So yes, that is gonna have an effect on your return. So what is a good return right now in the recession? And in my opinion, I still think a good return is gonna be anywhere from 15 to 25%. Really, a 20% has always been my gold standard. It was a lot easier to get a 20% a year ago. You kinda have to work for it now, but at 15%, I don't really count that as a loss. And something that I always tell people is that, some people might say, oh my gosh, at 15%, is that even worth it? Well, yeah, that's still a really good return. That's still about 1.5 times what you're gonna get in the stock market, and probably what you're gonna get in long-term rentals. I've always said that the typical long-term rental return was like 6 to 10%. For some people, a little bit higher. I think that number is a lot smaller now. It could be anywhere from 0 to 6%, right? All to say, the point I'm making here is that, yeah, short-term rental returns have gone down a little bit, but so have long-term rental returns and stock returns and crypto returns. All returns across the board are lower. And so the fact that you can still get a 15% return on an Airbnb is still actually pretty amazing. And it still would have been amazing a year or two ago, because a 15% is still really, really good. So that's why, for me, if I can find anything in the 15 to 25% range, I'm gonna be a happy camper. But I wanted to show you something, because it's not all about cash on cash return. This is a spreadsheet that I give to all my host campers, but I wanted to show you a couple things here on a deal that I've actually been comping out. So I've actually been comping out a $2.1 million deal with 15% down, and I won't walk you through everything, but the gross revenue on this was gonna be $300,000, and the cash on cash return was gonna be 26.6%. But let's just say that the cash on cash return is closer to, I wanna make it, let's see, it's close to 20% as possible. All right, 270,000 gross revenue. My cash on cash return is 19.5%. This is a metric that basically shows how hard your money is working for you in a year's time, for the most part. And it's the gold standard for measuring the success of a short-term rental, and a lot of people get focused on the cash on cash return. But that's just one aspect that makes up your total ROI. You also have debt pay down. So this is the actual principal that you're paying down every single month. Guess what? You're not the one that's paying it. Your renters are, right? So this is great. You got appreciation, so it means that your house actually goes up in value. You've got your depreciation, and you've got debt pay down, basically the equity that you're building in the house. Then you have your tax deductions and your write-offs, right? Like depreciation. When you factor all these different things in, then you realize that your cash on cash might be at 20%, but your overall ROI would be a lot higher, and I'll show you. Okay, so on this particular deal, assuming that my annual appreciation is 3% and my tax bracket is 37%, then my actual ROI after year 5 is 58.6%, which is a lot juicier than this 19.5%. So if we assume appreciation of 3% and my tax bracket of 37%, my actual annualized ROI over 3 years is 46.4%. Double what the cash on cash return is. And again, there's a lot that goes into this spreadsheet right here, but all to say, the point that I'm making here is that yes, cash on cash is important, but ROI is really more important, and that's what you need to be looking at. So if you're finding a deal that's at 10% or 12% or 15%, just understand that the overall ROI over a 3 to 5 year span can be more than double the cash on cash return. So all of a sudden, a 15% cash on cash return, not so bad, right? Anyway, if you want the free version of my analysis spreadsheet, I'm gonna link that down in the description below. I've given that away for over a year now, and it's helped a lot of people comp their deals. Hello, I'm back from the edit, and I wanted to just say one more point here before we move on, and that's that I have a responsibility as an educator to be both realistic and encouraging. I genuinely want you to feel like this is something that you can do. With that said, I'm really good at Airbnb. I'm good at doing this, and so a lot of this stuff comes second nature to me. You may not be good at this, and it may not come second nature to you, and it may be a lot more work for you than it will be for me. With that in mind, I want you to just think about when you're analyzing your numbers, I want you to brace yourself for what the possibilities are here in the next year going into a recession, and I want you to really be analyzing your deals super conservatively. Over the past 2 or 3 years, we could have expected much better returns, and they could have fallen on our laps, because really, if you were a decent host, you probably could have pulled anything off. But things are getting more competitive, rates are getting a lot higher, the stakes are a lot higher because of that. So when you're working on a deal and you're comping them out, it's a reps game. You have to do this over and over and over again, but I just really want you to be mindful, to be conservative, and to pad your numbers. Give yourself some leeway. Give yourself the bad, okay, and good scenario. Don't give yourself the good, better, best scenario, right? Give yourself the bad, okay, good scenario, and be ready for the worst case scenario if that ends up happening, right? Brace yourself for that. Prepare yourself for that. Keep reserves in your account for that. But also, so it's possible that it's gonna be the good scenario. It could even be a better or best scenario. There's so many ways that it could play out. I want you to think about this from a very analytical and conservative standpoint, because no one's ever mad that they were too conservative and ended up blowing their numbers out the water, okay? Hopefully that makes sense. All right, so with that said, if you want these deals to start comping out and coming to life, then this next step is by far the most important step that you're gonna take, okay? This is the number one most important step that you have to take to start an Airbnb business in the recession going into 2023. But before we get into the next step, I just want to say that if you're liking this and if you're liking me and you feel like I have something to teach and I have something to say, then consider enrolling in Host Camp. Host Camp is my 12-month mentorship program where I teach you the fundamentals of starting an Airbnb business, and I literally lay out the entire blueprint for you from A to Z. I think at this point we host over 140 calls a year that center around design, financing, how to craft a good offer, a group coaching call with me. We have an Ask a Superhost session every single month. We have an automations coach and a comping coach, and genuinely I have tried my best to take out all the pain points that come along when you're starting and scaling your Airbnb business. But I promise if you enroll in the program and you show up to the calls, you'll make back the money that you invested in the program many times over. If you're a host camper watching this right now, maybe you can attest to this in the comments. So if you want to learn more about the program, you can book a 100% free call with my team over at hostcamp.com. And of course, I'll always leave the link in the description for you. All right, step number 7 to actually starting an Airbnb business. And like I said, it's the most important one, and that is gonna be make a offer. Make an offer, like make several offers. We've never had an opportunity like this in the last decade to actually make competitive offers, hell, to even make lowball offers. It has been a seller's market, frustratingly, for so long, where you had to make 50,000 over or 100,000 over offers to get accepted, if that. I was part of that crowd and I got rejected all the time. And guess what? Now I'm making lowball offers because I can. And so can you. And guess what? You're probably gonna get several no's. And that's what this all comes down to. It's a numbers game. You have to get your reps in. You have to make offers. If you analyze 10, 15 deals a day and several of them comp out, make offers on all those properties. Not just one, not just two, not just 5, make 20 offers. I don't care. Get your reps in and get ready for the no's. It feels scary, but guess what? It also feels good. I've made several lowball offers in the last 2 weeks, and they've all been rejected or have been countered. But it feels good to be in the game because I know that for every 99 no's, I'm gonna get 1 yes. Sellers are starting to get a little scared, okay? There are some markets where you still might have to go above asking, all right? But in a lot of markets, the higher price point stuff, especially the stuff that I'm looking to buy in the $1 to $2.5 million range, I'm seeing price reductions every single day. Guess what? When I see a price reduction on a property that I like, I put a lower offer in because why not? They'll either counter me or they'll say no, and if they say no, then I'll move on to the next deal. We're throwing Hail Marys here, people, and guess what? Eventually, one of those Hail Marys will be caught. I don't know if that's exactly how that metaphor works, but you catch my drift. I'm serious though. I know a large majority of you are watching this right now and you probably have analysis paralysis. The best way to get over analysis paralysis is by taking action. If you did the other steps that we talked about, nailing down a goal, setting your strategy, getting your pre-approval, picking out your markets, finding a realtor that knows short-term rentals, analyzing deals, making an offer, all of these are different forms of taking action. And every single time you do it, you level up and you feel stronger and you're ready to take on the world because you have all this momentum that you've been building up for weeks. That's what this all comes down to, is taking action and not letting the fear of a recession or the global collapse or the high interest rates get to you, and keeping a level head and understanding that if you analyze a property and it comps out and it really does pencil out according to your criteria and it's still a good deal with high interest rates, then move forward. Because if it's a good deal today, guess what? In a year or two, when you refi back down to 3, 4, 5, 6%, it's gonna be a great deal. But once you're ready, make that offer, take that big swing and go all in. I'm thinking about making a part 2 because I already know that this video is so long, so I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna make a part 2 to this video that walks you through the back half of starting an Airbnb business during the recession. Does that sound good? Is that something you wanna see? If it is, please let me know in the comments below and I'll break this down even more for you. So don't forget to book a free call with my team over at hostcamp.com, and definitely don't forget to register for and attend my 100% free workshop this Wednesday, November 23rd. All that info is gonna be in the description down below. We're gonna talk about how to break into the Airbnb game and some glamping goodness too. For all the people that have been waiting for Glam Camp, you're gonna wanna be there. But for now, I will catch you on the next episode of Robuilt. And if you've watched to the end and you haven't subscribed yet, come on guys, what are you doing? What else do I have to do? I feel like this was a good video. Subscribe, hit the like button, help me with the algorithm, all right? All right, catch you later, bye.